Now let's get to know the tags in practice. Let's see what they look like and what they actually do. So here you can see I have my web dev course folder opened. Inside I have my folders day 1 and 2, day 3 and 4. So let's get into it. And here you can see I made a folder HTML tags. So I'll open it. And here you can see I have my HTML tags HTML file and a catalog img. In this catalog, I placed my picture, which you can see right here, because I want to show you how the img tag works in the browser. So let's close this picture right now. Let's go to our HTML tags file, HTML. Let's get those text indents smaller. Like this. You can see I prepared myself some comments right here, just to know what to show you and in what order. So let's jump into it. First of all, I want to show you the button tag. We create it like this. Let's place some text in it. Just like this. Let's save it. And what we need to do is to open our file with the live server, because what you can see on your screen right now is the blank page in Google Chrome. So let's open our file with the live server. And here we can see our project right here. Let's zoom it a little bit with Control plus. With Control minus, you can make it smaller. So let's zoom it just to see it better. This is how HTML button looks like by default. Of course, we can easily change its appearance in CSS. It's a primary button tag, used most often in the forms and internal stuff on the website, mostly used for submitting something, forms, decisions, changes, etc. Button does not redirect us to some other page or a website, but it can get us to the other place on the same page. As you can see, you can click it, and it does nothing by default. The second type of button we use in HTML might be the A tag. A tag is the anchor as we know it, and it lets us go to the different subpage of our website or a whole different website. Here we can see the href attribute, which you already know, which is the exact link to the website we want to redirect the user to. Usually making projects, we place the hash inside the href attribute. We place it as a placeholder because when we click a link with this href, we won't go anywhere, the page won't be reloaded, but instead we will go to the top of our page, which I will show you later on. So let's go to our A tag. Let's place some text in it. Let's save our file, and you can see it in the browser. You can see it's blue by default. It has this underline beneath it. And when we hover our cursor on it, you can see the cursor change to the pointer hand. We don't see it when we hover on the button, but as we know, it's also clickable. You might see those elements place themselves next to each other. That's because both of them are the inline elements. So for now, to make them place themselves below each other, I'll just place the BR tag in our HTML. I said you shouldn't do this in your project because these issues can be done in CSS pretty well, but we are not into CSS right now, so I'll just place it to make it more clear. You can see I placed the BR tag right here, and now when I save the file, you can see our elements place themselves one below the other. About the inline elements and why they place themselves next to each other, we will also talk in this course later on, so don't worry for now. Now I want to show you what's gonna happen when we click our A tag. When we click it and hold the button, it goes red, and when we release the button, it goes to a purple color. And we can click it many times. You can see that it goes red for a moment, and then it stays in this dark blue or purple, I don't know, color. That means this link with this href attribute was already visited. We can also see that our page is not reloading. And since we are on the top of the website, nothing actually happens. So it's really comfortable for the developer to place the href attribute with the hash like this for experimenting how the a tags looks and behave on the website without reloading the page or actually going anywhere. But the a tag can also lead us to a whole different website. So let's create a new a tag like this. Let's place the br tag to place our new a tag in the next line. Let's create a new a tag with the href to a whole different website like this. Let's place some text. Like this. Let's increase the size of our code editor. Let's save our file. You can see the color of this a tag is also dark purple. That's because my history knows that I already been to this page, to this website, TechCrunch. And now you can see when we click it, we go to a whole different website. Which is in this example, the TechCrunch website. We can go back as well. And basically this is how it works. We usually don't place links to other websites on our website, but to other subsites of our own website. And I'll show you now how we will do this. Each of the subsite of our website will be a separate HTML document. So let's go down to this. Let's create a new HTML file in the same catalog, HTML tags. New file, about HTML. We can see this is a whole new different document. Let's create a structure of our document. Let's place the title, about, go to our body tag. Let's create h1 for example. And let's place about just to see the changes. Now let's go back to our HTML tags, HTML file. Let's create a new a tag. Let's use br tag once again and create a new a tag. And since our both HTML files like HTML tags and about HTML are in the same catalog, all we need to do in href attribute is to place the name of our HTML file we want to redirect the user to. So it's gonna be about HTML. We can see the prompt right here from the Visual Studio Code. And let's place a text. Like this. Let's save our file. We can see the new link right here. And when we click it, we go to our about HTML file, which we can see right here. We have the same title, about, like here, and the h1 tag, about, like here. I can change something just to see it's the same website, and you can see it clearly. So let's go back to our HTML file, the first one with the tags. And that's how we are going to build the subsites at the beginning of our front-end developer career. Now let's go on with our project. We can close this about HTML file. Let's go to our HTML tags file. And let's go to another section, let's call it. And I want to place some tags here. Div with the text, div, header with the text, header, main with the main text, footer with the footer text, aside just like above. And at the end, the nav tag with the nav text. Let's save it. And we can see our tags right here in the browser. Let's make it smaller a little bit. As you can see, all these elements look the same in the browser by default. They have different semantic meaning for the search engines, but will look the same for the user unless we change it in CSS. So if you will use a footer instead of a header, it will not be logical, but it will look the same for the user. You can see that each of these elements place themselves below others from a new line. That's because they are all the block elements, and unlike the inline elements, they start always from the new line and place themselves one below other, just as you can see in our example. Here you can see those elements place themselves below each other by default. And here we had to use the BR tags to break the lines and force these elements to start from a new line. But we usually place something in these elements. Like for example, header. Let's place a P tag with the text header. Let's save it. And you can see the changes right here. You can see that we have some free space now between those elements. It's because the P tag has margins already set by default. Because P stands for paragraph, so each paragraph should be visibly separated by default. But let's go back how it was right now. Let's go to other section. And let's create a P tag. And now a little bonus for you. If your text cursor is on a line, if you click Shift, Alt, and arrow down, it will copy the whole line. So it's an easy way to copy the elements with the whole content in them. So I'll make it once again. It's a Shift, Alt, and arrow down on your keyboard. Now you can see we have 3 paragraphs, 3 P tags with some text in it. Let's save our file. And you can see in the browser that they are separated with the margins by default. As you can see, P is also a block tag, which means it starts with the new line. But we also have the inline elements, just like the span tag. So let's go to our other section. Let's create another P tag, which is the block element. And let's create some dummy text, which is lorem, just like this. Let's make it a little bit smaller in our browser. So this is the effect we can see right here. It's worth knowing that the margins of the P tag applies to the whole element and not to the single line of the element. So you can see there's no those big spaces between lines of the text in the same element. If we want to style some fragment of the text in a block tag like the P tag, we can use inline elements that won't break the line because they do not place themselves from the new line. So we can use an inline element inside our P element to style differently some fragment of the text. For example, if we want to bold something in our text, we can wrap it in the P tag. Where we can cut the closing tag, add it right here, and we can see that inside our P element we have the B element and some of the text is inside our B element. Let's save our file and we can see the difference right here. This is our P tag, which bolds the text inside it. As I said, we shouldn't use the B tag because it affects only the appearance of the element. And instead we can use a strong tag if the text is, for example, important as well. And we want it to make it bold. So we can just go to our HTML file once again. Replace the B tag with the strong tag. Save our file. And you can see there's no difference in the browser visible for the user. But now the browser and the search engines recognize this text as important, and additionally to bolding it, it will also be indexed by the search engines as an important information. Of course, the boldness can be switched off in the CSS, so this text might look exactly like the rest of the p tag, or for example be styled completely differently, having a different color or a font size. But if we want to bold some text which is not an important information, we can always use a span tag. Like this. And as you can see, this text now is not different in any case from the rest of the p tag. And that's because the span tag has to be manually styled in CSS to change its appearance. Span is the basic inline tag, just like the div is the basic block tag. And the example that it has no effect on the appearance in HTML is the perfect example of separating the appearance of the website from the HTML structure. Now let's go to our img tag. Let's go to another section. Let's create the img tag. And as you may know, img allows us to add an image to our website. Img is the container for the image. As you also may know, img is self-closing. If we want to do something like this, that would be an error. So let's delete it and leave it just how it was. img requires this attribute src to work, and although it's not necessary to use, it's very good habit to have also an alt attribute, which I will talk about in a minute. As I said it before, I have an img catalog right here inside our HTML tags folder. And inside this catalog, I have my picture right here. So now let's try to place it in our src attribute in the img tag. So what I want to place here is the name of the folder, which is the img. You can see the prompt of the Visual Studio Code right here. So as well, I may click it, and you can see I have one picture inside it, so I can click it as well. But that also could be done manually, just typing it. All I wanted to do is to indicate the path to our file, to our image, which is in the img catalog. Then we use the slash, and then we type the name of our picture with the extension. Now let's save our file. Let's put the default size of our website, and we can see it exactly like this. It will show on our website by default in its actual size, and this is 600 to 750 pixels. Later in CSS, we can change the size of the image however we want and place it wherever we want on our website. If we would have the image file in the same catalog as our HTML file, we could just place the name of the picture with its extension. But since it's in the other catalog, we have to indicate it as well. Usually we place the JPEG files or PNG files. Now I want to go to the alt attribute, which stands for the alternative text. So let's place something, for example, Damian. I think it should be more specific. So let's add something to it. Like this. Let's save it. And this attribute contains the information for the browser, for the search engines, and for the people with any sight disabilities about what's on the picture. It's also visible when our picture cannot be displayed for some reason. For example, let's change the src attribute. Let's add another letter. As we know, we don't have this file with this name in our img catalog. So now it can't be displayed. And then the user will see this icon that this should be picture, but it wasn't found. And the alternative text, which is the content of our alt attribute in our img tag. But let's fix this. Just like this. The next thing we can place in our img tag as an attribute is the title. So let's do this. And let's make it Damian on the dark background. Just like this. And this attribute allows us to see the title when we hover on our image in our browser, just as you can see right now on your monitor. It might be useful, but it's not necessary. And now let's go to our next section, which is the navigation. So first of all, we have to create the nav tag. As I said, we usually put our navigation in the UL tag, which is the unordered list, where we place our list items, which are the li tags. Let's place some tags into it, for example 1. As I showed you before, when we push Shift, Alt, and arrow down, we can copy our lines of our code. Then what we need to do is to change those texts. And there we have our navigation. Let's see it in our browser. Let's for now just comment this picture because we don't need it and it takes a lot of space on our website. Just a quick reminder, if you want to comment something in your HTML file, you can just select it like this and press Ctrl/ on your keyboard, just like this. And then when we save our file, the commented part of the text will not be interpreted by the browser and will not display on our website. Now let's zoom it a little bit. And we can see our navigation right here. You can see that unordered list is dotted by default. We can easily change that in CSS. Now, as we also know, those elements are not clickable. That's because we have to put an A tag inside our li tag, which is the list item. So let's do it with the first one. Let's go to our first li tag in our HTML file. Let's create an A tag. Let's cut this closing tag. Put it after the text. Because as we know, we should have opened and closed list item tag, and inside opened and closed the A tag, which is our exact link. Let's place the hash in the href. Save our file. Now we can see it's clickable. Let's zoom a little bit our website because I want to show you something. Now we can see we have this scroll bar. We are at the bottom of our website, and when we click our link, we go to the top of our website without reloading the page. So this is how the hash works in the href attribute. If we are at the top of the page and we click the link with the hash, nothing actually happens. But when we go down and we click the link with the same hash attribute, we will go to the top of our page. Now, if there is no this hash in the href attribute, so we leave the empty href attribute like this. Let's save it. Now, when we'll click the A tag with the empty href attribute, the page also will go back to the top of our website, but it will be also reloaded. It happens very quickly, but I will try to zoom the screen right now just so you may see it. Look on the icon next to the title of our website, and when I click it, you could see for a moment there was a reloading screen. And when we have hash in our href attribute, look at the same spot when I click this link, and you can see that nothing actually happened. Now I will show you how to create such a navigation with the Emmet shortcut. Now it might be difficult for you right now to understand it, so don't worry if you don't understand it well at this moment. I just want to show you that we have many useful Emmet shortcuts, and sooner or later you'll get familiar with them and you'll be using them on your daily basis. So what we want to do right now is to create the nav tag, in which we have the UL tag, in which we have LE tag times 5, and in each one of them we have the A tag. And when we hit the enter on our keyboard, voila, this is the structure of our navigation. It's good to remember it or write it down somewhere, because those shortcuts, believe me, will be useful in your work later on. Now let's save our file and let's see the effect on our browser. You can see that our navigation is created, but we only see the dots because our A tags in our list elements are empty. And if we place some text into it, they'll be filled with the text and will work as intended. As we know, we can also create the tag alternatively. It would be a nav tag in which we would like to have P tag times 5. And in each of them, we would like to have the A tag. Then we will get navigation with this type. And it's possible to make and it will work, but the first way is recommended, and we should use the first way according to specification. The way with the UL tag and the list items inside it. At the end, let's say something about the forms. We often use the forms on our website, for example, for login to the website, or to send a message to the website owner, or to post a comment under some article. It's all forms. We will create a form on our website at the end of this course. So now I would just like to show you some examples how the forms may look. So first we need to do is to create a form tag, just like this. We can see the action attribute, but it doesn't matter right now. It indicates some kind of action. For example, sending a form to the server. But for now we can easily delete this attribute, because we have submit action by default. So it won't be necessary for us at the moment. And inside our form, we can place an input. And here we can see this attribute type text. We can also delete it, because without it, it's already set by default. So nothing actually happens if we delete it. Let's save our file. And we can see the input right here in our browser. We can simply type something in it, and that's basically what input does. So now let's put the type text back to our input, just like this. Just how it was at the beginning. Let's save our file. And we can see that nothing actually changed. But we can change the type to password, for example. Now let's save it. And now if we want to type something into our input, we can see the letters are hidden, just like in the passwords. But let's go back to type text once again. Just like this. And the other attribute we can use in the input tag is the placeholder. And we can type for example, I made a typo. Once again, I made a typo. Okay, I think now it's fine. And now you can see the placeholder in our input to tell the user what's supposed to be in the input. And when the user starts to type, the placeholder vanishes from the input. We can also add a label to our input. And we can make it like this. Create a label tag. Delete this attribute because it's not necessary for now. Let's cut the closing tag of our label. Put it at the end of the input. Just so we have the form tag, the opening and the closing. Inside we have the label tag, the opening and the closing. And inside we have the input tag. And we can place some text directly in the label tag. And depending on each side we place the text, the label would be on this side of the input. I'm about to show it to you and it will be more clear for you. Let's make it like this. And we can see the label. We can place a colon and a space just to see it more better. Now we can see the label for our input and the input itself. But when we cut this text from here and place it after the input with a space, we can see it's on the other side, which is not very logical, but that's how it works. But let's go back to the first example, like this. And we can see the label and our input to place our name, for example. To submit our form and send it to the server, we usually need a button. So let's create a button in our form. Once again, we have our form. Inside we have our label. Inside we have our input. And just before closing our form tag, we can place a button. And a button in a form tag by default is responsible for submitting the form without any additional attribute. Let's save our file and we can see it right here. And it basically works like this, that when we fill our input and click the submit button, our form should be sent to the server. But let's say that we want to check before submitting if the name was actually typed in. We can do that as well. Let's go back to our input tag right here. And we have to create another attribute, which is the required attribute. And as you can see, it has no value. It's just required. We can also do this like this, that required equals required as well. But if the value is the same as the name of the attribute, we can just leave it like this. And now we inform the browser that this input has to be filled to submit the whole form. Because when we leave it empty like this and we will try to submit it, we will get this information: please fill out this field. And for submitting the forms, the enter key on our keyboard works as well. We can click the submit button, as you can see, or click the enter button to have the same effect. If we fill our input and hit the enter button, the form will be submitted as well. We also have other types of inputs. So let's create some. For example, type radio. Let's see how this looks. You can see this input right here. We can check it. It's usually one available option of many, when you can check only one of them. But we have also the checkbox, like this. And checkbox works like this, that you can check it or uncheck it. You already know this from the websites. We also have the text area, which looks by default like this. So it's a bigger field for a text where we can sign a message, for example. So the forms may look like this, where we want someone to enter his first name and last name, write us a message, and submit the form with a button to send this message to our server. We have many tags used in the forms, but it's no need to remember them for now. All you need to know is that we place our forms in the form tag and we submit them with the button. For now, it's all it takes. And in the next video, we'll get through some theory about the attributes of the HTML tags.